Good morning, everybody. This is your boy D Mac, man. I apologize. I had some technical difficulties on the last video that I was trying to do, so I just decided to scrap it and do it all over because this is an important story to get out. This just is something that we need to think about real quick about people who are in positions of power who have control over the outcome of situations in our lives and can set our lives on different courses. This is a story of that, and I'm going to break this down for everybody real quick. There's a judge in Rutherford County, Tennessee, in the juvenile system. Her name is Judge Donna Scott Davenport. Now, she's been accused of incarcerating juveniles at an alarming rate. An example is the entire state's average for incarcerating juveniles is 5%. Judge Davenport alone by herself incarcerates 48% of the juveniles that comes before her. Now, I'm going to tell you the reason why. This is why, because Rutherford County just this year has seen an influx in black residents moving in from neighboring Nashville due to gentrification in the Nashville area. And that gentrification, it pushes out the lower class families into other areas. And a lot of these families are starting to show up in Rutherford County. Well, now you have the people of Rutherford County who's seeing this large population of black people who are migrating towards them. And they're like, we don't want that here, and so they're putting pressure on this judge to do something to deter those families from moving to Rutherford County. And what this judge came up with was, I'm going to target all of these black children who are moving into this area, and this is going to deter these mothers and fathers from wanting to move their families here. Now, this is something that she's been doing for a long time, and she's not been held accountable for it. There's been a settlement back in June of this year for $11 million, and that goes towards 1,500 children who were illegally incarcerated by this woman. But there's been no accountability on her part. She is not being held accountable for her clear actions that have been proven. And here's one way that has been proven. There were students at Hobgood Elementary School in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It was 11 young black children were placed in jail for not breaking up a fight between a 5 and a 6 year old. And this came at the hands of Judge Davenport. Now, this is the charge that she said these children were guilty of. She said that they were guilty of criminal responsibility for another person's conduct. And this law absolutely does not exist. And when these children were came before the court, it was immediately dropped. But the harm had already been done. These children had already been um, well, I'm not going to say physically attacked, but they were arrested by police officers. They were processed, booked, jailed, and all of that stuff. And so the damage had been done. The trauma has already been placed there. The fear has already been placed there. And that's her whole intent and purpose, is to plant a seed of fear in these children and, in most importantly, in these parents, so that they will not see this as a place for them to live. That's the whole entire purpose behind what this evil racist judge is doing in Tennessee right now. This is happening right now. This is not something that happened years ago. No, these things are still taking place because this judge is still in position, even after the settlement has been agreed upon, and the evidence has to be there to show that this judge has done this to these children. She's still sitting in a position of authority in Tennessee. Why is that? How can that be when she is guilty of being a racist? See, this is the thing that we have to understand about the the racial climate in the United States. It's going to continue to be where it is because it has a specific purpose. It has a specific purpose. And that element of the United States is not going to go away. I don't care who tries to convince the people that racism no longer exists in the United States. That's an absolute farce. That's the most asinine thing that a person can come out of their mouth and say, and anyone who's willing to say that is very delusional. Because we have far more ponderance of evidence that supports that racism is alive and well in the United States than we do that it's not. And the examples that people try to use to say that racism still doesn't exist, well, black people are progressing in this area and that area. That does not mean that there's still not an element that's pushing against the progression of us as a people. And we see this in people like Judge Donna Scott Davenport of Rutherford County in Tennessee. And there's more like-minded people just like her all across this country, here in Texas, Chicago, Atlanta, all of these different places. I did a story a while back where the Buckhead neighborhood in Atlanta wants to be separated from the rest of Georgia and want to be considered their own sovereign place, because they feel like they can protect themselves better than the law enforcement that they have in those areas. And so you see all of these different groups of non-brown and black people wanting to set themselves apart and above everybody else. And this is going to continue to go on. So anybody who has this fantasy in your mind that we're at some point going to live in peace, we're not, because they're always going to find a tool to divide us. And no, when color no longer can be a barrier, they're going to find subdividers such as complexion, like they already do. We have colorism. You have people being separated by complexion. You have classism, where people are being separated by the amount of money that they earn or the tax bracket that they're placed in. So where we have this racial component that is used to divide us, as we see the people are mingling more and that there's no more solid ethnic groups like that because of the mingling of the people, there has to be other tools of division, such as our religious beliefs, such as our political beliefs. And so that's why people say a lot of times when you're with people, two things you don't talk about is religion and politics, because these are things that'll easily divide you no matter how much of a friend you consider someone to be. And I've witnessed this myself. I've had friends to unfriend me on social media because of my political views. I've had people to unfriend me based on my spiritual views or my life views. So, all of these things are always going to be an element of this world and of this country specifically. And I'm just pointing out one very ironclad on the books where I can show you this is not one of those things that can be debated, because the information is there. The lawsuit is there. The actual people are there. And my sister lives down close to this area that this is being reported on. And so that's why this really kind of stuck out to me, because one of those children could have been my nephew. One of those children could have been my niece that came up under the evil intent of this judge. And so this hits home a little bit for me. And so I definitely had to bring this out to plant this seed in the mind of the people, so that we're aware that there are people in high positions who are not people of integrity. We attribute a person's position to their character, and that is not always the case. Just because a person has a position that requires them to have strong character and high standards does not mean that that person has those attributes, because anybody can put off a facade and they can hide behind what their position represents and try to mask themselves in that. You know what I'm saying? But they still have their hood on. That hood is still tucked away in their drawer, and their actions has become the hood. They no longer wear the hood. They turn in their robes and their hoods for robes and uniforms and things of that nature. So just keep this in mind when we're seeing these unlawful acts being done against our people and they're not being held accountable for it. We know exactly why. And we've got all the evidence in the world to back up the reason why we continue to fight and why we're not content with the progression of Black people in the United States. Because even though it's better, that does not mean that it's equal. You know what I'm saying? I can treat my dog a little bit better, but that does not mean that I'm treating him equal. So I can give him a couple more scoops of food, but that don't mean that he's getting the same as everybody else. So let's not confuse progression with equality, because this is what a lot of people are doing. They're trying to use progression as, oh, this is equality. You're doing better than you were back in the 40s and 50s. So this is equality. This is what they're trying to say to us. But it's not equality. It's just progression. And we need to continue to progress to get to a point of equality. So this is just what I've seen. This is the seed that I want to put in the minds of the people, and I hope you gain something from this conversation. And this is your boy D Mac. You know what I say? Sticks and stones can break your bones, but the word can always heal you. I'm out.